Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Oh, very nice indeed. A nice little petty revenge. Just letting things fall where they may after they alienated our OP. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Mother-in-law shared her honest opinion of me. I hope she enjoys her relationship with her son and grandchildren. I met my husband when we were 17. We got married several years later and just celebrated our 20th anniversary. I know this man. I've seen how much he remembers things. My relationship with his father was always tense. With his mother, it seemed like we were close, but about 7 years ago, I realized she had never and would never consider me part of the family. This was at the point my husband and I had spent half our lives together with a great future foreseen. I acknowledged the issue and tried to move ahead in a positive way to support my husband and allow my children to have access to their grandparents. Last Christmas, there was a huge blow-up at the in-laws' house. His father started in on me, then his sister, and finally his mom. When my hubby walked out of the room to pack our things and go home early, a 2-hour drive, his mother took a moment to say some of the most horrible things about me I've ever heard. Things about my personality, my parenting skills, my friendships, even my mother and sisters. I admit I responded with one very unladylike sentence. Since that day, I've not contacted her nor communicated with her. The revenge, though, has been sweet. The boy she raised, who married me and has become an amazing man, is now in charge of the relationship with his parents. This means that he, not I, sets up visits, buys and sends birthday cards, calls them every week or two. Or not. Because you see, this very wonderful man is extremely forgetful and doesn't plan ahead well. ADHD can be difficult that way. Every few weeks for 9 months, I've heard him say things like, "Oh shoot, last week was their anniversary, wasn't it? I forgot to send them a card." Or, "Man, I haven't called my mom in a couple of months. Oh well, maybe tomorrow." I'm not keeping him from anything. I would not have a problem with him taking our children for a visit. They've seen their paternal grandparents twice in 9 months. My parents live in the same town we do, so my kids have a good, strong relationship with their maternal grandparents. But I know him, I know me, and I know how our relationship has worked since we were 17. I've received a few emails asking if we're coming for a visit. This week, we again received a card in the mail reaching out. They've called him a few times to try and set something up, but as I could have told them, in our relationship, I am the one who finalizes most plans, and whoops, hands off for me. And our second story. Poor assistant manager just trying to do her job, but won't let me do mine. I'd forgot about this story, probably due to beer 30, until my wife reminded me of it. Backstory: I'm an electrical engineer for a steel company. The owner, who I work for, has a sister and a brother-in-law that own multiple McDonald's. Knowing that, I also do the IT at my company. My owner, one year, around 2006, 2007, came to me with a problem his sister was having in her home office where she ran her business. No problem. Side work. I go to her house and clean everything up, get her stuff back up and running, and continue to do that each month because she's really cliquey and tends to mess stuff up bad due to impatience. Fast forward to 2008 and the recession hits. I'm over there one day and casually mention that my wife was looking for daytime work now that our youngest son's in school. She's promptly hired. A month later, and they decide to move the office to a real office instead of her luxurious, really it was, basement. There was nothing in this office at all. It used to be a plumber's shop. I'm promptly hired and put on a retainer to get the office up and running. New computers, new printers, server, all wiring, remote access, all the bells and whistles. Took a month. Fast forward about 10 years later, and my wife is now the office manager. I'm still on a monthly retainer for all IT work needed. I've also, over those 10 years, helped in some stores when new things pop up, like adding things to the network to be able to use our local university, college kids' stipend cards, etc. All the store managers know me. All the regional managers know me. The director knows me. And of course, the owners know me. Heck, we all go out once a year on a bus trip to Cleveland or someplace and get hammered together. Now, the night in question, my wife and I had just gotten done having a few drinks after work and were making our way back to our house about 6 blocks away when I decided to go get a dinner box from one of our McDonald's for us and our 2 sons still living with us, 2 Big Macs, 2 regular cheeseburgers, 10-piece chicken McNuggets, and 4 small fries. I pull into the drive-thru and place the order. The young lady instantly comes back and says they are not accepting credit cards currently and can only accept cash. I'm confused for a second because cashless, as they call it, only goes down briefly around 2 a.m. for some audit or something, my wife says. It's 9 p.m. I have cash on me, so it's not an issue. I get to the window and pay and ask about cashless being down to the girl, who me or my wife don't know. McDonald's turnover rate, you get it. She briefly mentions something about one of the readers being knocked over, so I just say, okay, I'll be right in. She looks at me a little curious but says nothing. I park and walk in the side door with my wife trying to sort out what's going on when the young lady says that I'm not permitted behind the counter. I get it, you don't know me or my wife, so I just ask her to get her shift manager real fast. She does, and just my bad luck, it's an assistant manager that had just recently been promoted, and I don't know her either. Nor does my wife. I try to explain that I work IT for the office, which she can see if you look over my right shoulder out the window, and that I was going to look and see what was going on with cashless and try and get it back up. I introduce my wife by name and mention that she's the office manager at the main office, and I point and can vouch for me. She still isn't letting me behind the counter. I'm not angry or upset about this, as she really is just doing her job, and nicely as well. I nod understandingly and pull out my phone. I swipe through my contacts and stop at the store manager and bring it up and show her, asking if we should call her by name. I swipe through my contacts again to the regional manager and do the same thing, showing her my phone and calling her by name. I then do the same thing with the director of operations and then both owners. I finally just said, pick one. I know cashless is the main payment method and every moment it's down costs quite a bit. The light bulb went off and she nodded. My wife, the beautiful social butterfly she is, strikes up a conversation with the newly promoted AM and starts talking shop as I head to the drive-thru to begin diagnosing things. Someone had accidentally knocked over one of the card readers, and they aren't small, and somehow pulled the cords out. A quick inspection revealed that the female RJ45 port had somehow got multiple of the contacts bent, and some were shorting together. Others bent down in a way that there was no way to make contact with the male cord itself. I'm assuming the ones that were shorting were causing the main hub of it to flip out, so I set about trying to bend the pins back into shape, somewhat. I plug everything back in, reboot it, and voila! Cashless is back in about 5 minutes. The AM thanks me, and I just say to leave a little note that I was here and what I did. My wife says she'll also mention it in the office to the regional managers. I got an attaboy from the owners for that one, and a free chocolate shake. And our last story. No inheritance to any of my siblings. My dad raised us in a strict military-style household. He was the type of father who would take things to the extreme in our childhood and all of his children stopped talking to him. He actually disowned me when I was 16 because I'd gotten pregnant out of marriage and kicked me out to fend for myself, so I had to figure out how to provide for myself and my child. My dad ended up contacting me a month after my mom passed away, crying and apologizing on how he treated me and my siblings and asked if we could meet up. I decided to meet up with my dad, because even though my dad wasn't the greatest father, it doesn't change my love for him. When we met up, my dad seemed very genuine, so I continued seeing him, which increased to me seeing him 3 times a week. My dad also tried contacting my sibling, but none of them gave him the time of day. I spoke to my siblings about the issue, and they basically told me to allow him to die a lonely death. Later on, my dad got super sick, and I ended up moving in with him and my 2 children to help take care of him. I learned things about my dad that I never knew, and I actually started to love being around him and see him as a different person. I chose to forgive him. It was hard looking after my dad and my 2 children as a single mother, but I pushed myself through it until his death. But during the hard times, I asked my siblings for help, and they both mocked me for even helping my dad, told me I should just throw him in an old age home. My sibling and I's relationship used to be super close, but ever since I started talking to my dad, they became distant. Now that my dad has passed, I've inherited everything from him and learned that my father owned a lot more properties and had a lot more money than I could have ever imagined. My siblings feel like they're entitled to some of the inheritance, and they've told me that if I don't give them any, they'll stop talking to me and that I'm becoming like my dad. They feel that since they had to go through having my dad as a father, they deserve some kind of payout. I disagree with them. The reason I got the inheritance is because I gave my dad another chance. I helped him when he was at his weakest, and I went through a lot juggling, raising my children, and caring for my dad without any of their help. Even when I begged them to help me, they just made fun of me for helping my dad and choosing to forgive him. Now, forgiveness is a choice, and I respect their choice not to forgive, but they didn't respect mine to forgive him, and added more difficulty to my life. They act like it was either them or my dad, and now we're acting like I'm being selfish for not sharing the inheritance my dad left for me. Edit. I just want to clarify that I never asked my siblings to come over to my dad's house and care for him. The help I was asking for was to help with their niece and nephew during the time my dad was sick. There were rules put in place where my dad was only allowed one other person at the appointment, and his doctor's appointments were a half-hour drive away. And unfortunately, the babysitter for my children moved, so I was having difficulty finding a babysitter whom I trust. I also want to clarify that I'm in no way upset at them for not choosing to forgive my dad. I'm upset at how they treated me for the choice I made to forgive, build a relationship, and care for my dad. They made a lot of low blows at me using my past abusive relationship as ammunition. Am I the a-hole for not giving some of my inheritance to my brother and sister? Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.